I wanted to talk about fasting because fasting is such a beautiful thing. Fasting is such an underrated healing tool here in this matrix. And, caloric restriction, the studies prove time and time again that caloric restriction actually leads to lifespan prolongation if it's done properly. I really do favor and adore the adage, the less you eat, the longer you live. And, it would be one thing if we were overeating the right foods, because when you overeat the right foods, they're much more gentle on your system. But when you overeat the wrong foods, which is what 99% of Americans do, it really taxes the immune system. It taxes the digestive system heavily. It plugs the body with all sorts of residues and different debris, because a lot of the foods that we're eating in abundance are heavily sticky, or highly sticky, excuse me. So, cook yourself some oatmeal and then put your hand in it once it's done, after it's cooled, and throw it against a wall and, let it dry. It'll be there for years. It's amazing how a lot of the foods that we're consuming are so sticky. And we tend to kind of, we just don't even really address it when we're eating these foods, that, hey, is this stuff going to digest properly? All the dough, all the flour, all the gummy bears, and all the just processed junk. So I tend to favor caloric restriction heavily. I don't eat breakfast anymore. Unless it's kind of a special occasion. I don't really eat lunch either, unless it's a special occasion. And today was kind of a special occasion. I had a piece of Ezekiel bread with some avocado on it, and some salt, and a little bit of vegan mayo. It was delicious, and that'll hold me over until at least 7 or 8 o'clock tonight. So, I think people struggle with fasting heavily because they get way too stimulated by the philosophies and the ideologies of fasting. And they try to jump right into it without really preparing themselves mentally. And fasting, ladies and gentlemen, is a huge mental, in my opinion, it's more mental than it is physical. Because once you stop putting in the foods that you're used to consuming, the mind kind of has a whiplash effect, similar to a drug addict who's not getting his or her fix. I'm not calling people drug addicts. I'm just saying that we're addicted to these foods, you guys. And when we stop eating them right off the bat, it can lead to a lot of mental distress, turmoil, agitation. Once the parasites within the body get used to eating these foods, once they hijack the immune system in the blood, it can make it very difficult to stop eating these foods, because parasites have been proven to manipulate emotions to get their host to do that which the parasite wants the host to do. So it's in the parasite's best interest to not only remain hidden to the host, but to get the host to eat all the right foods so that it can have a continuity of life and thrive and multiply. So trying to stay in the sunlight so you guys can see me clearly. But yes, fasting. I get a lot of questions about fasting, so let's dive into it. Fasting is the art and science of abstaining from food. A fast, by default, by definition, is when you abstain from all calories and you consume water. See, a lot of people think that drinking nothing but green juice or fruit juice and not eating food is a fast. Essentially, that's a feast, a juice feast, a vegetable juice feast. Fasting, I'm kind of looking at it I'm kind of being overly critical, but I like to, I believe in the power of water fasting. I believe in the power of the original definition of fasting, which is when you abstain from all calories. And although the calories in juice and fruits is negligible, they're still there. And I'm not saying that juice feasting is a bad thing. You can do some amazing stuff on juice feasting. But I think for the true power of fasting, you want water. Water and some occasional tea. And I'll even have a little bit of coffee when I fast. So every day, you know, I intermittent fast. And for those who don't know what that is, intermittent fasting is when you go a predetermined amount of hours each day without eating. So typically I'll go 13 to 23 hours a day without eating. And that allows me to extract a lot of the benefits of fasting without having to go into the second day of fasting without a meal. So this is kind of the hack to a certain extent. I recommend picking up a copy of The Warrior Diet. I can't remember who wrote that book. A really good book for people who are interested in fasting, especially intermittent fasting and caloric restriction. But yeah, I mean, I've done 10-day fasts, I've done 4-day fasts, I've done feasts, I've done broth fasts, vegetable broth fasts. I derived benefit from all of them, but when it came down to comparing my results from, say, water fasting to juice fasting, water fasting was always the kingpin. Because essentially your body, when you put water into your body and water in nothing else, it doesn't have to break up any of the things that are in the juice, the calories. So it doesn't have to use energy burning those calories. Even though they're negligible, it's actually quite a significant amount of digestive fortitude that gets used up to break apart those, or break down those calories. But I considered water fasting more of a healing tool, and I view juice fasting or juice feasting as more of a nutritional tool, a way of flooding your body with nutrients after you've gone through a healing with water fasting. But I do favor both. I mean, by no means am I saying just hate. I'm not telling people to hate juice feasting because, compared to the standard American who eats junk all day, if you go even 3 days without food and just consume fruit juice or vegetable juice, preferably no sugar, you're going to not only help your body massively, but you're going to get rid of a lot of waste and a lot of shit that you've been holding on to, especially within the mind. You're going to break a lot of the codes and engrams that have you tethered to utilizing food as it's a drug. It's a desensitizing drug. I do believe